You're at a cafe, 3 tables away from a stranger's baby. It isn't yours. You don't know this family. And yet your whole body has gone tense, shoulders up, jaw tight, one ear locked onto a sound you have no relationship to at all. That's not politeness, and it isn't your imagination. It's a specific, measurable hijack of your attention that researchers can trigger on command in a lab. They call it the cry interference effect. So why does a sound that isn't even directed at you have that much power over your brain? This response is old enough that scientists caught it in babies, only hours old, decades before anyone measured what it does to an adult in a coffee shop. In 1971, psychologist Marshall Simner published a study in developmental psychology in which newborns only 1 or 2 days old, too young to see clearly, roll over, or recognize a face, were played a recording of another newborn crying. They cried back, more of them and for longer, than when they heard other sounds of the same loudness. No parent had taught them that. The reaction was already wired in, running before the infant had lived long enough to learn anything at all. A newborn 2 days old, who has never had a single conversation, already answers a stranger's cry with one of her own. You, a grown adult with headphones and a to-do list, still can't fully tune it out either. The circuit never got the memo that you grew up and learned to concentrate. It took until 2015 for anyone to clock exactly how fast that circuit fires in an adult brain. Researchers at Aarhus University in Denmark and the University of Oxford, led by Catherine Young and Morten Kringelbach, played infant and adult cries to 25 healthy volunteers, none of them parents, while recording their brain activity with magnetoencephalography, a scanner sensitive enough to catch changes measured in milliseconds. The brain sorted an infant's cry from an adult's cry within 100 to 200 milliseconds of the sound starting, at a preconscious level, before the listener could have consciously identified what they were even hearing. Your brain decides this is a baby in distress before the part of you that thinks in words has caught up. This is where the tidy explanation breaks down. You might assume that once you consciously notice the cry, you can simply choose to ignore it. In 2016, researchers Julia Dudek, Amanda Ferris, Mark Bornstein, and David Haley at the University of Toronto tested that directly. They had adults perform a standard attention task, matching colors to words as fast as possible, while playing either infant cries or infant laughter in the background, matched for volume. People were consistently slower and made more errors on the cry trials than on the laugh trials. Even while actively trying to focus on something else, the cry still won some of their attention without asking permission. A skeptic might say any sudden, unpleasant sound would do the same thing. Of course, a jarring noise pulls your focus. That's not special to babies. That's fair as far as ordinary startle goes. But the Toronto study already controlled for it. The laughter was every bit as loud and unfamiliar as the crying, and it barely made a dent in people's performance by comparison. It isn't loudness doing the damage, it's specifically the acoustic signature of distress. And a few other things are worth ruling out here too. This isn't about being a parent or even liking children, since the effect shows up just as strongly in adults who've never had a baby of their own. And it isn't rudeness or something wrong with your focus either. Your brain simply keeps a lane permanently reserved for that one signal. Go back far enough, and the logic gets simple fast. A human infant is about as helpless as a mammal gets. It can't run, can't fight, can't lift its own head for months. Crying is close to the only tool it has, a piercing, hard-to-ignore signal aimed at whichever adult happens to be nearby, related or not. In a small ancestral group, the baby crying a few feet away wasn't always your baby, but it was often someone whose survival mattered to your own. Kin, camp, the next generation of hands. An adult who could shrug off any nearby infant in obvious distress wasn't showing admirable calm. He was failing a test the whole group needed him to pass. The ones who couldn't tune it out were the ones more likely to live in groups that raised their children successfully. Your discomfort in that cafe isn't a flaw in your focus. It's a several 100,000-year-old group alarm, still fully wired, going off for a stranger's kid because for most of human history, that distinction barely mattered. Once you know to look for it, that same lane opens for more than just crying. A smoke alarm 3 apartments over still yanks your head up before you consciously register the sound. A stranger's raised, panicked voice in a parking lot cuts through a phone call faster than a stranger's calm one ever could. A dog yelping in pain outside gets more of your attention than a dog barking happily ever does. None of it is louder. All of it is distress-shaped, and your brain has already decided distress-shaped sounds go straight to the front of the line. This isn't only a recent discovery, either. In 1877, Charles Darwin published a short paper called A Biographical Sketch of an Infant, built from notes he'd taken decades earlier while watching his own son as a baby. Long before anyone could scan a brain, Darwin wrote plainly that an infant's crying serves to show that there is suffering, that the sound itself was built to broadcast distress and demand a response from whoever was in range. He didn't have a magnetoencephalography machine or a Stroop task. He'd simply watched closely enough as a scientist and a father to notice a cry is built from the very first day to be impossible to file away as background noise. You made none of those calls yourself. Your brain had already flagged that sound as urgent, sorted it, and started pulling your attention toward it before you'd even turned your head to look. So the next time you're at a cafe, 3 tables from a stranger's baby, and your shoulders tighten around a sound that isn't even yours to worry about, that's not you being easily distracted. That's the same ancient alarm that once kept a whole group of infants alive, still running exactly as designed, for a family you'll never meet. And a crying stranger isn't the only person who can quietly take over your body without asking first. Wait until you see what happens to your own posture, your own accent, your own hands, the next time you sit across a table from someone you like.